All right, we are rolling. So my name is Vandervalk. Here with the Blue Crocus experience, and I'm joined tonight with by John Seaman of JC Property Professionals out of Marion, North Carolina. And glad to have you on here, John. We connected not long ago on Facebook, and excited to learn a bit more about what you're up to and what you're doing. And usually what I get people to do is just give a quick introduction, tell us what it is that you do, tell us a bit about yourself, and we can roll from there.
Yeah, sure. So I own our enterprise is JC Property Professionals. It's a company that's consolidated a couple different companies under its umbrella. What we've done is we've set it up so that we can come in and completely develop a property from start to finish in-house, so we can control the entire process. The LLCs it owns is JC Construction, JC Treeservice, JC Grading and Demo. And so we own the different companies so that one hand can kind of wash the other, basically.
I love it. So do they all have to be working on the same job, or can they all be, can the tree service be out servicing anybody in anywhere, and then when it's needed, it gets called on? Gotcha.
Yeah, quite regularly they're all separated. It's not super common for them all to be working on one project at one time.
Yep.
A lot of times, like the tree service and the grading crew, they'll work together a lot, or the grading and the construction will work together a lot, but they're all set up as different entities completely so they can, go out and service our community as well at the same time.
That's awesome. So are you kind of the head honcho, making sure the wheels roll on the day-to-day basis, or?
Unfortunately, yeah. I've got some really good guys working with me now. So there's, obviously there's someone over each division, but we just moved the pieces of the chess game here back at the office.
Yeah, tell me a bit about how you got started in this. What was the journey to get you to this point? Obviously you didn't start with, what is it, four or five companies underneath you?
Yeah. So it's five actually, because there's we've started a LLC, which is a nonprofit that utilizes those services as well to, help folks in the community that can't afford the services. But
awesome.
So how I started was I grew up poor and had to learn a lot of things really quick. So,
yep.
So me and my dad just did construction when I was younger, and I turned that into a business, and we were just doing remodeling and stuff. And I went and got my contractor's license so that we could do some larger projects. And we got a couple houses to do, and we had a couple lots that we had to have cleared for those houses. So I brought some subcontractors in to do the clearing for us, and long story short, that turned into a tree service. So we just brought those guys in-house to help us continue clearing the lots. And then when we weren't utilizing them full time, we wanted to keep them employed, so we sold some tree work. Once that started to grow further and further, we were subbing out grading work and demo work as needed, for new development.
Yeah.
Again, just to cut to the chase, that started a whole nother entity. When we don't like to say we're control freaks, but we like to deliver as prompt of a service to a customer as we can.
Yep.
And when you can control how the flow of the schedule goes, it makes things a lot easier. So
100%. Otherwise you're fitting into other people's month out, 2 month out schedule, right? Because you're not the most important player on the board.
Absolutely. Yeah. And circling back to the conversation earlier, obviously it's hard to keep all those guys employed working on just your projects. So we set it up so that completely individually all the business can go out and run and service other contractors, service other homeowners in the community. So
that's a lot of infrastructure to and processes to put together.
It is, and it's not a well-oiled machine. I mean, you work on it every single day, and you can plan, but things happen. So you're right. It takes a lot of systems and processes in place to make it all work well.
For sure. So now, does each let's take the tree service, for example, because that's kind of how we ended up connecting on Facebook here. So does each division or each company, because they're set up as separate companies, right?
They are, yeah.
Yeah. So does each company do its own advertising, or does like the holding company?
It, yeah, yeah. So it's easiest to run off of JC Property Professionals business name, and so all of our advertising and our shirts and stuff. Most everything says JC Property Professionals. At the LLCs are kind of behind the scenes for obviously liability issues and stuff like that, and trucks are labeled differently. They'll say JC Construction or JC Tree Service. Some of the guys in the field, some of their shirts do say things differently. We try to advertise. I'd say more of our branding would be as JC Properties as a whole.
Yeah.
And we do try to individualize some things because some like lead generation services and stuff like that work better for other businesses than they do one or the other. You know what I mean?
Sure, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, since we're on the topic, maybe we can just roll into what you do use for generating leads and getting customers for the individual ones. Maybe touch on the ones that would be of interest to people here.
Yeah, sure. So that's actually a extremely common question. No matter who you're talking to or what you're talking about, that always comes. So, and I've had the conversation so many times that I think the only real answer is just 100% hustle. So, word of mouth, obviously number one. You do good business comes around.
Yeah.
And so we think of marketing as like an octopus almost. It's got a bunch of different legs, but they all come back to one hub, right? And that's branding, that's marketing, that's sales, and it's how it's trucks being wrapped, it's your guys wearing shirts, hats, business cards being out everywhere, and then obviously there's SEO, there's Google, there's Facebook, there's Home Advisor, there's Angie's List, and of course we've done research to see what brings the most in.
Yeah.
What I often find myself wanting to tell folks is none of it works if you don't work. So
gotcha. you don't want to sit here saying one's the best if you don't kind of clarify what's behind the scenes.
It won't, man. I mean, and that's what everybody wants, right? Everyone wants to know, what faucet do I turn on and get the most flow?
Yeah.
And what's my ROI on each one, and what's going to be the best investment, and what brings me good leads, what brings me bad leads. And really, man, I think it all goes back to number one, as much hustle as you can put into the marketing, and number two, a sales process. Because let's just say Home Advisor, because I know everyone always wants to touch on that subject.
Yeah.
Home Advisor can make you an absolute fortune, or it can cost you a fortune.
Yeah.
We have good turnout on Home Advisor because I think we have a pretty good sales process in place.
Yeah.
Very, very prompt to answer the phone when that lead comes in and reach out to them. We're very prompt to be the first person standing in front of them. We're very prompt to follow up. And what I see very commonly is people will complain and say Home Advisor doesn't work, but they're not doing those things. They're not quickly calling that lead, or they're not following up with them, or they don't want to go out and do the song and dance in front of the customer, which I hear really often.
Yeah.
And so for us, I can tell you what works best for us, but that doesn't mean that's what's going to work best for the next guy.
Yeah. That's something that I've seen in a lot of the different people that I've interacted with is, some people are making a killing off Home Advisor. Yes, you get random leads coming through. And there's different lead services out there. But the biggest thing is, like, if you're not calling the customer up right away, the very basis on the way that they operate is that, they're sending it to 5 different people at least.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And, even if it was exclusively to you, the leads, right? And I don't know if you know, but I do lead generation as well. So I deal with this even with people who are getting leads, exclusively sent to them. It's like you're you're not following up on the leads. It's like, this is sitting in your lap. It's coming just to you. It's not even being sent to 5 people, and you're not doing anything with it. You're not calling back, not even the same day, right?
Yeah, that's an extreme pet peeve of mine, especially when folks start to bash the lead generation service as if it's their fault when just like you said, I mean, it's only as good as what you do with it,
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, a big thing that I try and work on with my clients is, follow-up is so key too. So maybe you can talk a bit about what your follow-up process is as well, because you don't probably make the sale on the first contact every time, right?
Very rarely. Actually, I was having a conversation with another business owner friend of mine earlier, and literally this week I sold a garage build that I priced 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yep. And let's see, November 2018, I priced another reno. It's a commercial building, and just this week we closed on that contract. So yeah, you have the go do the song and dance in front of somebody and you sell right then, but I think just as much, and for sure on bigger projects, it takes several times of following up. I did listen to a statistic not too long ago that a lot of folks don't buy within 15 months. So
especially for the size jobs that you're dealing with, right? They're probably planning out, a year or more ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely a marathon that we're playing. It's not a sprint, it's and like I said, we probably do, it's a 50-50 probably. We probably get just as many that we go out and stand in front of somebody and do the sales process and sign a contract right then. But there's just as many that we work on constantly. So, and those take constant follow up. Another good point, and not to skip ahead if this is end up, but another huge thing that we see too is kind of skipping ahead, but also tailing back to the lead generation is a lot of times we're seeing that let's say someone's 4, 5, 6 months out. Well, they sell the job on day one and they lose that contract 3 months out or 4 months out, 2 months before they actually go to execute the work, because
cold feet or whatever.
There's no follow-up even after the sale. Well, just because you've got that sale doesn't mean, hey, communication's done until we get here to execute the job. I mean, your sales process is until you start the work, and even during the work you're still selling.
Yeah, because I mean, they don't give you the whole money up front, right? You've got to earn the rest of the down. Like they probably give you a down payment for the big jobs, but you've got to earn the rest of the payment.
That's right. Yeah. So, and another thing is, folks are buying on emotion a lot of times too, with especially in the industry that we're in, whether it be trees, grade and demo, or construction. People are paying you, because you're giving them a service, but how does that service make them feel? So if you sold the job, they're all excited and everything, and then for 3 months you don't communicate with them, they're starting to feel a little bit, like you said, getting cold feet. They're starting to feel a little bit skittish about it. Maybe they got other things that have come up that they need to spend the money on, and this project isn't the main priority no more. A lot of that's because communication's cut off and you're not followed up with them.
Sure. No, absolutely. So maybe talk to me, what's your follow-up process on those big jobs that you just closed that were from like a couple of years ago? You obviously made first contact in 2018 with that job, and then what happened between then and now to land the job?
Yeah. So let's say within a week I got this guy a number, right? So I proposed the job at $80,000. He's got an email. He's got the contract there ready to sign if he wants to go. Mm-hmm. Well, if I don't hear nothing from him in 15 days, I follow up with an email, and I set this all up in my CRM and my software to quote this stuff. And so it gives me reminders, hey, follow up with this guy. So 15 days, nothing, reach out to him. 30 days, nothing, reach out to him. 90 days, nothing, reach out to him. And then anytime in between there, if it crosses my mind, I'll just pick the phone right up and say, hey, just wanted to touch base with you. Is there any more information we can give to you? Did I fail to leave something out? And a lot of times that's what this stuff is we just didn't hit right on something, there. And unfortunately, a lot of folks don't speak boldly or frankly, so they're afraid to tell you what it is that you didn't hit on.
Yeah,
So
because
it's like,
they're not sure if you can do it or if you're gonna raise the price or whatever, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's almost like every one of those follow-ups, you almost have to go through the whole sales process again to try to really dig into what it is that they need to hear from you, you know. And sometimes there's other things involved. Sometimes there's insurance stuff involved, or there's litigation involved, you know, or there's so many different variables, you know, you have to play with. And a lot of it is just letting the customer tell you how it all needs to unfold, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What something that I'm looking to put together is kind of an instructional for people. I think you had popped into my contractors group on Facebook, the contractors growth tips and strategies.
Input on that.
Yeah. So what I'm working on content for that, and basically I'm going to start putting together some tips for the sales process. And so I'm, through the podcast process, I'm learning from different people what they do and that works in their industry. But one of the things is CRMs, right? A lot of contractors, especially smaller ones, they're not using any sort of CRM. So maybe talk a bit about, you know, what a CRM is. For those listening that don't know what it is, it's a customer relationship management software. So maybe talk a bit about which one you use and how that changed things for you.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. That has definitely been night and day difference. Not only with, you know, obviously reminding me on the follow-up, communication, professionalism. There's so many things that a really good CRM, as well as estimating software, we use ours in conjunction with one another. So they're
Yep.
both tied to our calendar and everything. It's all commingled, and it really, really streamlines the process. So we use, and it's really simple. We use Jobber for our estimating software. We use LACRM, which is less annoying CRM, for our CRM, and they're kind of, you know, one offers a couple of different details that we like, one offers something else that we like, and we also use Google Calendar that's commingled all together. So everything, any change that we do to any bit of that, it automatically goes to my phone, which is super handy.
Yeah.
Because as I'm out in the field, I can make a change. The office staff knows it. My sales folks know it. My project managers know it. So kind of back to marketing. Email marketing is really huge for us too. That's a very, very great lead generation for us. That's zero cost.
Yep.
I mean, literally almost every single time we email market, which is once a week, we get a couple new leads in the pipeline.
Yep.
Well, the CRM keeps all that stuff together for us. As we meet new customers, sell new contracts, emails go in there. All the customers' information goes in there. What's really great about it too is we have so many repeat customers. We don't always remember exactly what we did for that customer, how the process went, how much we sold the job for, what our profit was on it. And we can very quickly, as soon as we pick the phone up, we can go in our CRM and look at the last job we did with them.
Yeah.
It also helps the sales process because it kind of refreshes everything that you did with them. So you've got that one-on-one connection again, just like you just sold the last job yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing I use it for is, you know, my brain has limited capacity, right? I'm thinking about the next sentence I'm going to say. And so the software, just for those listening, you know, the software, there's free ones you can get, there's different levels you can get, but even the free ones, I use HubSpot currently, and
Yeah.
it does everything I need because it's me working. Obviously I'll have to branch out once I get more team members on, but basically, you know, it keeps all contact information. It's a giant Rolodex. It keeps record. You can basically attach all your actions to the contact. So you've got your emails, you've got notes. I use it mostly for notes and any research I do around the company, or you know, I offer a lot of audits for people's online presence. So I take notes there, and then if they come back to me in a year, I'm not going to remember anything about what I did. I'll go back to my notes.
Exactly. Whether you sold the job or not, that's the really great thing about the lead, the CRM is, as the lead comes in there, even if you didn't sell the job, anytime we're on the phone with the customer, in front of a customer, we're putting notes in there.
Yeah.
So like you said, we only have so much capacity that we can remember. And
Yeah, it's pretty small.
yeah, even if it's just remembering details from the last conversation.
Yeah.
Or here's something else that's really huge is let's say I'm on the job, and one huge thing with me is, because I've got so much going on, if I'm standing there talking to the customer and they say, hey, I want to change this little detail, and I say, okay, great, no problem. That's, it's not even an issue as far as the work or the contract or anything. It's just kind of as the process goes, this is what they want us to remember. Or, hey, we're not going to be here on Tuesday. Can you make sure the driveway is not blocked? Well, as soon as I get in my truck and the phone rings about another fire I've got to put out, I've forgot that detail.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm at the job and I have my phone in my hand and I have the CRM, I can quickly put that in there. And then everybody on my team knows that as well. So that's another huge, there's just so many things with the CRM, if you utilize it properly, that can really help your business. And I think the greatest thing about all this stuff, and I've got a ton of friends who are contractors as well in the same industry. And there's, oh, well, I don't even have a smartphone. I got a flip phone. I don't know how to turn a computer on. This stuff is so simple to use that you don't have to be a rocket scientist to really properly utilize this stuff. And even if you're only getting one or two things out of it that you use it for regularly, it can go such a long way, I think.
100%. Absolutely. And something that I've worked with clients to do is, and you guys probably have done this, is basically, once you have everybody in your CRM, maybe there's an off day and one of your salespeople just rolls through and calls people up that haven't closed and be like, hey, like what can we do to move you down the process, right? So it's I call it a reactivation campaign, but it's basically taking past clients or clients that never materialized and just activating them again, starting them down the process again, and so you've got this unmined gold that you can just keep tapping into. Yeah,
I mean, that's really huge. Not only is that kind of part of the follow-up, whether the customer says, hey, no, I'm not doing this contract right now, or we found another contractor to do it, that person is a buyer, right? Yeah. So they've purchased the contract, whether it be from you or somebody else. So we have a note there that, hey, they purchased from somebody else, no hard feelings. Well, next year we're going to reach back out to them.
Yep. How did it go? Did you like the work they did? Can we do a better job for you?
So many times the customer says, we had a terrible experience. We wish we would have went with you. And we have this next project. Can you come out? And then you're the best person ever. You know what I mean?
Well, and the fact that you followed up with them automatically puts you on another level, right? Because almost no one does that.
Yep, you're exactly right. Here's another huge thing too. Anyone who offers a warranty and you have a CRM, let's say you have a 1-year warranty on whatever the service it is that you do. Mm-hmm. Every customer feels like, yeah, they sold me this service and it comes with a warranty, but how hard is it going to be to get them out here? Yep. What if you as a contractor followed up with them in 9 months and said, hey, your warranty is going to run out in 3 months. Could we come by and do a checkup, make sure everything is good to go? Dude, that goes so far with customers.
That's huge. Yeah.
Blown away by that.
Yeah, that's really huge. I hadn't heard of that, but that's such a good idea. Especially, people that offer guarantees or warranties or anything like that, is the service providing what I said it would provide, or is, has the house caved in yet, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Talk to me a bit about the email campaigns. You said that's free. A lot of the ones that I'm familiar with, are like thousands of emails, but, what are you using for email campaigns, and explain a little bit for the listeners what that looks like.
Yeah, sure. So we use MailChimp. Okay. And again, we work really, really hard on building a database of emails. Yep. Was recently at a seminar, and they said an email nowadays is worth about $30. And I'm a very firm believer in that, because we do have such a high turnover with our email marketing.
Emails coming back in, oddly enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, and this all goes back to, again, how hard you work, because, me or you can quickly go out and just gather a ton of email, but is that all trash, or is that, potential down the road customers? Yeah. And so a lot of this really is just moving the customer through your process till they call you and say, hey, come stand in front of me and sell me.
Yeah.
So it's nurturing them down and teaching them. And a lot of our email marketing isn't, hey, we're the best person, choose us. It's, hey, here's a little tip on how to do your quarantine project right now. You know what I mean? So once a week, we'll send out either just a, hey, this is what we're doing this week. This is what we've done with the community, or here's a quick DIY at home, do it yourself thing. And here's another huge thing too, is we have just an email marketing list for other contractors in our area. We send out, this is what we just learned in our industry. And guys, this is just as simple of, what did we just learn? We're just sharing it with everybody else, just like on Facebook. You share on Facebook. It's the same thing. And that kind of puts us in the position of being the expert, right? So these other contractors are looking for that. And so when they have something difficult that they've never done, although we've taught them, they might pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, can you come out here and help me with this project?
100%. And I mean, it creates goodwill as well. If they need to sub out for someone, then they're going to call you because they know that, you're good people.
Yeah. And everything we've talked about, we've hit on a couple of different subjects. Well, it all kind of ties back to one another. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It all goes back to sales. That all goes back to the branding. That all goes back to putting yourself in that position,
But for the listeners, like, positioning is so key, right? If you can, no matter what industry you're in, if you can provide value to people, then they're gonna eventually come to you if they need something done, right?
110% for sure. Yeah.
Talk to me how you're finding the emails. So is this past clients that you're sending out info to, or are you buying email lists, or talk a bit about that?
I've never bought one email list. I've never paid $1 for an email. I like to brag about.
Nice.
Thanks. I work really hard on making sure every single person I talk to, I get their email address.
Yep.
It's so much more valuable than a phone number nowadays. And I think that that gets lost, because if you don't have all these other things that we're talking about, if you don't have the CRM and you don't have the email marketing list and stuff, obviously that email is not valuable to you, right? So, number one, anyone I stand in front of, I get their email address. I've went back through any single person I've ever done business with on any of my businesses. And if I didn't have their email address, I just picked the phone up and said, hey, just trying to put everything together here at the office. Can I get your email?
Nice.
9 out of 10 people don't say no. Now, they may unsubscribe when you do, because it's kind of like behind the scenes, like rejection, but most folks will at least give it to you up front.
Yep.
And then the folks who unsubscribe, that's just kind of weeding out that's not your customer anyway,
Right.
Another huge thing with these, like, folks that are in my industry, contractors and stuff like that, is realtors. A lot of those folks are really happy to give you their email address because they want to stay in connection with you. And those folks are always in front of our customers. That's their job, is to stand in front of the customers that we also work with.
Yeah.
Well, how many of us are there to them, right? There's 50 contractors to a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
You don't stay in that frontal cortex. If you don't stay in front of mind on these folks, how are they going to remember you? What's going to separate you from them, right? So obviously, you got to stand out. But number one, you got to constantly be hitting their emails so that they always, are thinking about you. So when they do stand in front of their next potential buyer or seller, they can say, oh, well, I just got this email marketing from this guy, John at JC Properties, and this is what he's doing. You might call him, and they might have just with somebody else, or they might have a family member that does it, but because you're in front of them more often than that other person, they're going to think of you first.
100%.
So not to weasel out of the question, but it's again, the very first thing I said tonight is it's all about hustle. That's just as important to me as the sale of getting the email, because if I get the email, whether I get the sale right then or not, I know down the road there's another really good chance for me to sell something else to them, right?
Yeah.
But if that email and I lose the sale, that's the end of the communication, unfortunately. So
100%. So are you just using the free version of MailChimp then?
No, actually, it's tied together with another one of our packages on our website. So we pay we pay our package there on the website, MailChimp company. So.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's fair. I think you can, for anyone listening, if you want to use this strategy that John's just laid out, I think there is a free MailChimp package. There's certainly some free services out there that can mass email people.
Yeah, and and correct me if I'm wrong, but until you get to so many thousand, it doesn't cost, right? So
I haven't used MailChimp for a little while, so I'm not up on the numbers. But yeah, there's reach out to John or I if you have questions about it. Because we'd be happy to help.
Yeah,
that's I love where this has gone. I love the value that we've touched on, some things that I was hoping to talk about with someone, and you never really know who you're going to pop on with, right? Because I mean, I'm kind of doing cold intros. It's like, hey, do you want to pop on the podcast? There's always something to learn, but we've dove down deep into some topics that I'm really excited that we have, because I think it's going to bring value to people.
Yeah, in each one of these topics we've talked about, I mean, we could have hours long conversations about really digging in and looking at each process of them. I mean, there's 5 or 6 different things we've talked about that all kind of, make a revolution that all goes together. And each one of those processes you can really dive deep in that have 40 other processes in there with them.
Yeah, exactly. I know we're still recording, but one of the things I'm wondering about as we're kind of chatting is, would you be willing in coming on live in the contractor group? Once we get a few more people, maybe we can talk specifically about, sales and follow-up, because if you can't make the sale, you don't get the money, right?
That's not.
So if you're open for it sometime, we can connect and do a live in the group, or even just record a specific video about that and then just post it up in the group. But I think that would add value to people for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'd love to. I'm happy to anytime that you get a chance to sit down and go over some of that stuff. And maybe even we go a little bit deeper and break down each one of those topics we talked about.
100%.
Because there's so much to be said on each one of them. And that's really the fun thing about business is there's every day, if you want to fine tune any process, there's so many different processes, not only out in the field, but back here in the office that are so critical to what we do,
Yeah. And I'd love to hear, I don't know how much time you have tonight, but we could talk for hours about, any one of these topics. Right. And there's so many different ways that everybody does it. And that's kind of the fun that I get, is I get to talk to so many different people and kind of see what's working for them. I do want to touch on, go ahead.
And really, I think that's very, very critical. Is I can tell you, I could write a whole book about every single process I have and how great it works for me, and what our turnover is and everything. But I think for each individual, you really need to gather as many processes as you can from other folks, and find what works for this guy, what works for that guy. And kind of mash all that together for what works for you, because every person's, personality is different. How they talk with other folks is different. How, I'm sure that a lot of folks listening know about a DISC assessment, and all that kind of goes back into how each one of these processes you deal with. So,
yeah. Did you say a DISC assessment?
Yeah, DISC.
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, really?
Peel that back for me.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not an expert on it, but it's really just, 4 different personality types on folks, how they communicate with folks, how they receive communication, if they're a very organized person, if they're really high strung. And in each different person, which you can just do a quick Google search on a DISC assessment. There's so many free online softwares that you can do a DISC assessment for yourself and really kind of figure out what personality type you are and how you communicate best with other folks. If you're a salesperson, I very, very highly recommend taking a DISC assessment. And there's some other ones, there's some other types of assessments to figure out but DISC I think is really good.
I'm going to do it right after this. What's your assessment?
So I'm a high D. So yeah, that means I talk fast, I move fast. I'm not very organized, but read each 4 of the categories, because not only do you need to know who you are, but you need to know who you're dealing with,
Sure.
right?
And so you're making that assessment as you, I love personality tests. My wife did psychology in university, so we're always, she's always subjecting me to a new test. But you know, you're kind of leading up to the point, you know, you kind of want to know what people are so you can relate to them, right?
Exactly. That's 100% right. Yeah. You need to know how to talk to folks, how to, like, if you're selling and I'm selling a C personality, I need to slow way down with how they value things differently, right? They communicate differently. And if I'm, running my jaws as fast as I can, because I'm trying to hurry up and get to the next job, because that's how I am. I move very fast. I've lost that person. They're like, just get the hell away from me. You know what I mean? Because I really need to dig deep into what you're going to do here at my home,
Right.
So you need to know who you are and who you're dealing with. Yeah.
I'm going to do that as soon as I get off, and I'll shoot you over a message.
Yeah.
Awesome. One other topic that, I've kind of been probing the different groups to see what people are struggling with. One big topic that people have been struggling with is retention of employees. So I've been, it's especially relevant in the paving industry because I'm working with a few people in that industry. But
Okay.
talk to me about what, I imagine any construction or labor industry is going to run into this. But talk to me a bit how retention's been for you, how, has it always been that way? And what do you do to kind of keep people around and keep the good people?
Yeah. You probably just doubled the length of this conversation.
Perfect. I've got time if you've got time.
Yeah, sure. So, so I think always the number two topics are, employees and leads, right? So that seems like the huge topics in any contractor groups. And that's because those are the two number one issues with businesses. I can go out and sell and I can go out and do the work, but we're only as good as the folks that work for us, right?
Yeah.
So retention is an absolutely huge critical issue in the industries nowadays, because it is hard to find tradesmen nowadays, and it's hard to find guys who will get up early in the morning, bust their tail all day long in the heat. You said paving earlier. Paving's extremely hot work.
Yeah.
People fall out very quick nowadays. And so retention is still an issue for us as well as everybody else. And I don't see a quick resolution to it. Not until, schools start pushing trades again.
Right now everybody's pushing for people to go to university, right?
Yeah. So I'm just turned 29 years old. And since I was in high school, that was the big thing right then. Like the trades were starting to get out of school. CTE classes were ending at that point, and everyone was pushing, you have to go to a university. You have to go to a university. Well, not everyone is made to go to a university. I mean, a lot of folks, this is what they're really good at,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, and this may be getting way off topic, but I think that kids nowadays don't even realize that being a plumber or being an electrician or being a roofer or being a tree guy, I don't even think that they realize like that could be a long-term goal for them, like that.
And there's good money in a lot of these trades too. If you've got business acumen about yourself, there's good money to be made.
Dude, arborists make stupid good money. I mean, tree climbers, roofers, there's so many folks in the industries that make such good money, whether you're the business owner, you're the project manager, you're the grunt, you're the guy in the ditch. I mean, there's so many folks that can make an absolute killing doing this. And that's not portrayed at all anymore. It's portrayed as the dirty contractor now.
Yeah. It's hard work, and a lot of people don't want to work hard now. So I mean, that's also an element of it.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yep. So, kind of getting back to the retention issue is it's a problem for us, and we're very fortunate right now to have a really good group of guys.
How many guys, just before you launch into it, how many guys do you have among all the companies?
So currently amongst all the companies, I have 32 full-time employees.
Nice.
We try not to utilize subcontractors, but we still have a lot of subs that work with us. Just because even with 32 guys, we can't get to everything fast enough.
Yeah.
and with the subs, they have the same issue as everybody else. The retention is terrible, but we just try to create a good culture that folks want to stay in. We pay our guys fairly. We try to help them out not only at work but in their personal lives, because if they're not happy at home, they're not going to be happy at work. And I think a lot of this is going to kind of sound crazy, but circling back to the disc is you have to know who to put with the right people as well. Like you can't put, 3 C's with a D, because the C's are going to just pull their hair out working with a D, and understand, that DIS or C, there's just different personalities, right? You can't put a macho guy with 3 soft guys or something,
Yeah.
So, and you can't force guys to do things either. You can't force people into positions that they don't want to be in. I learned that the hard way a couple of years ago. I kept trying to force guys to be managers.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks don't want to be a manager. Some folks want to be a manager and they don't want to be the guy digging the ditch. So it all comes down to communication, just communicating with your guys, figuring out, where to put them and where to make them happy, whether they're going to get up and want to come to work in the morning. What we go out and do is hard work. Like you said, there's a lot of folks that get up, and it takes a lot of self-discipline to know when you're going to go out and work a 12-hour day, which we work a lot of long-hour days. There's very rarely do we work an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
And it's hard for someone to get up in the morning and know they're going to go out and do very, very hard work for 12 hours if it's not something that they're really happy about doing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a bit about, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's all right.
Can you talk a bit about, maybe a couple stories without names or whatever, but ways that you have worked with people to kind of help them? Maybe they were struggling a bit with the people they were working with, or they're struggling with something at home, or do you have some examples that might, resonate with the listeners?
Oh yeah, I've got a ton of examples for sure.
Right.
So, just recently, actually, I had a guy who, he had an issue with his home. He was a couple months behind on his rent, and he was doing a rent to own deal, and he was worried about losing his home. So I didn't know this. He didn't come to me and tell me this, but I knew something was off with him because at work he was on his phone a lot, and he just wasn't focused. He was making a lot of stupid mistakes. So I just kind of pulled him to the side and said, "Hey man, what's going on with you?" And I speak very boldly, not only to my office staff, but guys out in the field, and guys around me, just because I'm a high D again. We move really fast, and I don't really have time for the bullshit.
Yeah.
So I was just like, "Hey, you made a couple mistakes. This isn't you. You're better than this. What's going on? Something's got you distracted." And that's something I've learned, as well as to read the guys more about what they got going on than what's actually going on the job.
Sure.
Because what's going on in their head relates 100% to how the job's done.
Yeah.
So, I just pulled him to the side and said, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, and he just kind of spilled the beans, because he knows I'm going to get to the bottom of it regardless,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to lose his job. When I was like, well, if you don't have nothing going on and you keep making these mistakes, then it's not going to work out, So he just told me, I got a couple months behind on my rent, and, landlord's thinking about kicking me out. I got 2 kids, wife living there, and so, well, where you at? And he told me what the number was. And so, well, if I can make the problem go away, can you focus on work and we can figure out how to get caught up? Dude, when someone feels like you're willing to help them just as much as you're asking them to get up and come help you build something every single day,
yeah,
it's a completely different person that you've just arrived, and for a business owner, a lot of those issues are really simple for us because we deal with a lot bigger burden,
Sure. But it's their whole world.
Exactly. Yep. And that's all they can on all day long. You can't expect somebody to come to work and put in 100% when that's all they can think about,
Yeah.
And another example, I had a guy who was over a couple on my grading, couple laborers, and just the type of guy who wanted to beat on his chest and push the guys around a little bit and maybe sit in a machine instead of hopping out and grabbing the shovel. And me, even this is my 6th year in business, even today, I've got a polo shirt on, but I got a white tee under this, and I'll pull this polo off and get in a septic tank with my guys. You know what I mean? So I don't expect any of my guys to point fingers and not be willing to help.
Yeah.
So anytime that you see that on the job, a lot of the times those folks won't come to you. Those laborers may not come to you and say, hey, this is unfair, because in a lot of situations it may seem that way, but you can read the guys and see how they're communicating with one another. And that's kind of taking a step back and observing. So I just pulled him to the side and said, hey, you're not willing to get in the trench with these guys, and he kind of acted like he was better than them. So I just kind of moved some guys around, and all of a sudden these laborers are producing 2 and 3 times as much work because they respect the guy that's over them.
Right.
It's very much a chess game, I think, of and you said your wife was a psychology major, right?
Yeah.
So another example I just gave to another business owner friend of mine is when you become a business owner, a lot of it is just dealing with folks' emotions, not only with the sales process, but your guys out in the field. Is you got to read what's going on with them, and try to quickly figure out how to handle it so that they can feel like you're just as invested in them as you're expecting them to be in you and your business. Yeah,
that's huge. And I think a lot of people miss that opportunity. They're like, who can we get to do everything we want? And they're pulling people off the highways and byways, and they're paying a minimum wage, right? And they're like, well, I can't keep them because they're no good. It's like, well, what are you doing to show them that they mean a lot to you, right? So, losing someone and having to hire a new person costs a lot more than paying them a little bit more.
It does, or helping make some of their problems go away. And I'm not saying just write blank checks to your guys and tell them to fix all their problems. These folks, just to say you care goes a long way, and make issues go away. And there's a lot of my guys I'll owner finance things too, things that they need in a new vehicle. Their only vehicle for their whole family just blew up, and they unfortunately they don't have the money to go buy a brand new vehicle right now. Well, I've helped them in a lot of situations like that, where I owner finance it. We take a little bit out of their check. We're equally invested in one another. It's a relationship. It's not I'm the boss and you need to go out and kill yourself for me every single day. Nobody is going to work hard for you if they don't feel appreciated.
100%. No, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And I mean, that gives some, I'll probably snag some of this and put it in Word form for people as well, if you're good with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know you have a lot on the go, so I don't want to keep you much longer than an hour here. But the elephant in the room kind of is your lip there. So maybe tell people what's going on with that. I forgot to talk about it at the beginning.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted you to get a chance to tell how cool you are, right?
Yeah. So I've raced dirt bikes my whole life, and I recently just bought a mountain bike so that I could do some cross training and build my endurance. Well, we here live on Lake James, and there's some really beautiful trails there. I went with some friends, not yesterday, but the day before, and went on some mountain bike trails. Well, I thought I was a lot tougher than I was, and thought those trails were way too easy for me. Let me go try some other trails.
Yeah.
I very quickly learned out that maybe I should stay on the beautiful trails for a little while longer, because about a 15-foot rock embankment and kissed a log. My tooth came all the way through my lip. I broke my pinky toe, ripped my pinky nail off, bruised my shins up. It was a disaster. Not only on top of that, but I got to walk with wet shoes, a bloody lip, 3.5 miles back out of the woods. So
Frig, that's the worst.
Sure.
I'm over here laughing, but I mean, it's a good story.
The very next day,
you what? Sorry, I missed what you just said.
That's all right. I said, and then get asked to hop on a podcast the very next day after busting.
Yeah. I like it. This was all planned. This was all part of my master plan.
Yeah, worked out good. So
awesome, John. Well, just to kind of wrap up, maybe shoot out. I had asked you for a fun fact about yourself that other people might not know. So maybe we'll wrap up with that, and any final words you might have for fellow business owners who are looking to crush it.
Yeah, sure. So I've got a a personal page on Facebook. It's actually like a business page. You can just type in John Seaman, and you know, a lot of the same stuff we've talked about tonight. I'll quickly hop on there and make a video and just share some of the stuff we're talking about now, because so commonly I see questions from other contractors and other business owners of, you know, hey, what works for you and what doesn't. So follow that. It's just John Seaman, Seaman on Facebook.
That's like a page that you can like and follow, basically.
Yeah. I got my personal page and my business pages, but that's like a business page as well. I try to just put some quick tips and tricks and stuff on there as well for other business owners. And, you know, I'd like to definitely get together with you a little bit more, maybe put some more of these processes down on paper, you know.
100%. So is that a coaching thing that you have going on there?
It is, yeah, and it's not extremely in depth. I mean, I don't run it as a business or anything, but a lot of times, you know, I'll have a friend that will ask something, and I'll just say, well, let's make a good video, and I just pick up the phone, turn it on Facebook Live, and answer stuff on there. So,
well, you certainly seem to, you know, have your wits about you in business. I'm 27, so if I can be where you are in a couple of years, that'd be fantastic. So. I mean, I'd love to have you on in the group that I'm creating for contractors, because I think that, you know, these business principles apply to any industry. So I'd love to have you on there and, you know, give you some exposure for the coaching side as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome. So any final thoughts, I guess, before we wrap up here?
No, that's it. If anyone else has, you know, anyone that's listening, if they would just want to reach out to me with any other questions or anything, I'm happy to follow up. I mean, we got a 24-hour service, and my phone doesn't stop ringing for that. So the phone's on me all the time. So if and you know, I get just as much out of it as you know, maybe the person asking the question. You know, if you're stumped on something in business, you know, especially if it's in our industry, with it being trees, grading, construction, demo. If there's something that you come across and you just want to quickly pick up the phone and reach out to us, I mean, I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. That's fantastic, John. I really appreciate you coming on. And I think that people will get a lot of value out of this, the stuff that you've talked about with me. What I'll do is I'll just end the recording here. We can wrap up quickly in the waiting room, and then you can carry on with your evening.
All right, man. Thank you.
Perfect.